Certainly you've noticed the appearance of the third and fourth phases in 𝘾𝙍𝙎𝙀. It's widely known that the official version only includes 2 phases, so where did these additional ones come from? This mystery is precisely what I want to discuss in today's video. I've developed an intriguing theory that these added phases might represent parallel realities, where the fate of certain sprunks was even darker, and their suffering more intense. In this video, I'll explore my thoughts on how each one could have met a tragic and eerie end. Let's start with the case of 𝘾𝙐𝙍𝙎𝙀. Ōren's fate was a grisly one, as he was brutally attacked and torn apart by 𝘾𝙀𝙀. He had no enemies, and no one but 𝘾𝙀𝙀 had a reason to harm him. It seems 𝘾𝙀𝙀 lost her sanity entirely, turning on several other characters in her madness. This violent turn is why we see ominous traces of blood around her lips and a wild, unsettling look in her eyes. In the third and fourth phases, ōren's face appears severely disfigured, almost as if 𝘾𝙀𝙀 clawed at it with a frenzied vengeance. Ratty's end came next, and it was just as horrifying. He was driven to hang himself, tormented by obsessive, disturbing thoughts that 𝘾𝙀𝙀 had insidiously planted in his mind. She convinced him he was worthless, pushing him to the brink of despair. It's likely that 𝘾𝙀𝙀's manipulation led him to lose his sanity. After his tragic hanging, 𝘾𝙀𝙀 returned to find him, tearing away his skin in a furious frenzy and gouging out his eyes in a fit of terrifying rage. Next, 𝘾𝙐𝙍 met his tragic fate. Known for his interest in construction, 𝘾𝙐𝙍's death seems to have been a tragic accident. He was likely working on a building project in the city when something heavy fell from above, striking him and causing a severe skull fracture. While he might have had a chance at survival, the situation grew worse as rescuers attempted to intervene. Unfortunately, another heavy object fell, crushing his head completely. This brutal accident left no hope for recovery. Then we have 𝘾𝙀𝙀, who likely witnessed many of his friends either panicking, dying, or falling into despair. Frightened and deeply affected, he may have even started to sink into depression. By the third phase, 𝘾𝙀𝙀's mouth begins to resemble Black's face, hinting that Black may have tried to sway him. But 𝘾𝙀𝙀 likely resisted this dark influence and chose a different path, shutting down for good. This decision to avoid further suffering becomes evident in the fourth phase, where 𝘾𝙀𝙀 appears entirely inactive. For Veneria, her demise was even more disturbing, and the sprout growing on her head began to root into her skull, drawing nutrients directly from her blood and hair. Over time, the sprout grew larger and more invasive, eventually consuming her body from within. This transformation devastated her physically until only her head remained, a chilling reminder of her former self. An alternate theory suggests Gray's fate. Initially, Gray might have survived by remaining in hiding, cleverly avoiding detection. His fear seems to have acted as a survival instinct, which kept him safe for a time. However, 𝘾𝙀𝙀 eventually discovered his hiding spot. She picked up a wooden stick and struck him on the head, inflicting severe injuries. Though Gray survived the initial blow, the injuries he sustained were extensive, leaving him vulnerable. Lastly, there's Brood's strange encounter with Simon. It's confirmed that Simon attacked Brood, biting him, but oddly, Brood didn't feel any pain and managed to survive. Seeing Brood unharmed, Simon bit him again, this time on the body. But even after the second attack, Brood continued to live, baffling Simon. Realizing that he couldn't end Brood's life, Simon ultimately left him, unable to understand why his bites had no effect. Darnold faced a brutal end at 𝘾𝙀𝙀's hands. In a violent frenzy, 𝘾𝙀𝙀 ripped off his robotic glasses, and the intense pressure and sharp glass shards inflicted severe injuries, crushing both his mouth and left eye. But her assault didn't stop there. She went on to break his skull and severely damage his body. The extent of the trauma caused his system to malfunction, and his eyes glitched into a menacing red. 𝘾𝙀𝙀𝙀 met an excruciatingly painful fate as well. 𝘾𝙀𝙀 viciously tore into his face and body, causing catastrophic injuries. The damage was so severe that one of his eyes fell out, leaving him unrecognizable. Then there's Skye, whose death was equally harrowing. 𝘾𝙀𝙀 impaled him with 4 metal rods, inflicting extensive internal injuries. Yet even this wasn't enough for her. She drove the rods even deeper, ensuring that his death was as prolonged as it was agonizing. Turning to Mr. Sun, it appears he didn't escape this tragic series of events either. Earlier, I suggested that Black might have corrupted him, turning him into an unwilling accomplice. Now, seeing the eerie transformations in phases 3 and 4, I'm convinced that Black played a part in Mr. Sun's descent. 𝘾𝙀𝙀's fate was tragic in its own way. As confirmed by the creator, 𝘾𝙀𝙀's skin was exceptionally stretchy. His flexibility led him to overextend his jaw, dislocating it in the process. However, In phases 3 and 4, it's clear he didn't stop there. He pushed himself even further, ultimately causing a fatal neck injury, as he broke it in a